Hello, Pepper community. I'm here in Dubai right now. I'm sitting with George. George is the head of marketing for corporate and investment banking at Mashreq. He's also our first ever invitee at the Global Marketing Leader Series. I know you've been watching us in the US, in India, recently in Singapore, but now George is joining us in Dubai as our first ever invitee, as I mentioned. And today we are going to talk about his journey. Today we are going to talk about the leadership lessons he's learned in his career. And I'm sure you'll all get lots of pearls of wisdom from him and how you can take those learnings, those experiences, and implement them in your careers. He's been all over the world. He's worked in the Americas, in Europe, in Middle East, in Asia, and he's a global citizen. So I'm sure all of you will find something relevant out here. Okay, should we jump into it, George?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. And then thank you for having me as well as the first guest here in Dubai. I'm sure you appreciate I think we're about 45 degrees Celsius today. So hopefully you're not cooking too much.
And we're both in jackets.
Yeah, we're inside. So
Yeah.
we're fine. It would be a different thing if we were outside. But thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. So we'll get right into it. The first question I had for you was, so I've been going through your profile, your journey, for the last 25, 30 years you've been working. And there's a lot of marketing there. So from Orange to Visa to Skype. So there's a lot of marketing there. I would love to understand, did marketing happen or did marketing grow on you as a passion?
That's a very thanks for this. I mean, that's a very interesting question because I keep asking that question myself. And I think a lot of us marketers are thinking about how do I get into marketing? How did I get there? Some of us got there from sales, some other from a different environment. But I think fundamentally for me, I was always fascinated by three things. Human behaviors. I've lived and worked across the world, and I'm myself also quite multicultural. So understanding human behavior has always been very interesting to me. I love sociology, I love ethnography, and those kind of things. The second thing was technology. I think I was at really the beginning of a lot of these transformational technology changes, in multiple industries. So when you associate technology with behaviors, then you think about, okay, what are the common touch points with people? And you have communication. I went into the communication business. And then there's also commerce. Fundamental things that we do communicate, we do exchange, and we do have commerce. So I guess this is where marketing came from. And then when you look at technology, behaviors, and you can create new innovations, can build new types of propositions, and you focus on what delivers value to the customer, then I think that's probably what really made me as a marketer out there, and then I haven't stopped since then.
Oh, very interesting. And I also alluded to some of the organizations you've worked in. So there's Visa, there's Skype, there's Orange, there's Mashreq. And each of these, I'm sure, have built up certain traits in you about the George that is today.
Yeah.
So could you give me a bit more flavor on
I'll start with the funny part. I mean, I love complexity. So I always get asked, why do you like complexity? And then why do you get in areas that are very difficult and a bit risky? So I'm a risk taker because I've done transformation predominantly in two industries. The first one was telecom. And then with Orange, I was part of the original team that basically created the portal business, the ISP, content, all of that. And it was a fantastic journey because I was very young. And then I got to from number 50 to, in 6 years' time, we were 6,000, we went IPO, and was heading all of marketing for portals across Europe. So it was fantastic. But then it taught me a very interesting lesson is that when you can really think from scratch and build it up. And then when I joined Skype, I think Skype taught me speed and scale and agility, because the amount of things we were doing for Skype for Business, I was pretty much, part of a small team building the proposition for business and for SMEs. we had 1 billion users back then. I know Skype now is gone. It's very unfortunate, but we had 1 billion users. And then we thought about 400 million of these 1 billion users were using it for business, where we had to build new products, new propositions. We had to take them to markets in 23 languages, across the world, and all digitally, and without mentioning the word phone, because we were obviously not regulated. And so speed, it was speed, scale, agility was very formative for me. And then I went to Visa. Visa taught me how to drive a very strong brand in a regulated environment. And Visa is fantastic because it's got that scale as well, but with such a strong brand that delivers trust, And I guess where now at Mashreq, there's a combination of both. Mashreq is probably one of the most digitally driven bank in the Middle East, if not the most digitally driven bank. But it has to do it in very, with strong governance, with delivering customer value, but in a regulated environment and still incredibly competitive. So I think, all of the journeys are transformative. All the journeys are quite, formative as well. And it kind of took me where I am today. I didn't really plan it that well, so that's where I am now.
Okay. And you've also operated in some of the more regulated industries, fintech, banking, communications in your career. And what's unique about these industries is they're not only regulated, but they're also very fast paced. So how has your leadership style evolved over the last couple of decades?
It's very interesting because when you work in regulated environments, and people actually don't understand what regulated means. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples. When people come into banking, they think processes will be well established. Don't get me wrong, banks are well structured, they're all well operated, but it's an everyday chaos. You need to manage that chaos through very strict governance, and then you need to make sure that everything is done properly, because you cannot fail and fail fast in financial services. You cannot you cannot do what you would do in a different environment. Okay, let's fail fast. And for example, when I was at Skype, we had an idea in the morning, by noon we had a business plan, and evening or next day we were launching it. But we knew we could fail fast, because what's the risk? But in banking it's very different. So you have to really understand where you operate and what are the constraints you need to operate with. So you need to integrate compliance very early on in your thinking. You need to understand also regulatory environment for your customers, for your bank, for how to manage that risk. But to go back to your question about leadership, I think it's always about that strategic view, strategic view, big picture view, but also how you deliver that operationally. Okay, and it's not easy to do in such environments, because these processes make you more and more task driven. Okay, so I think one of the key things that I always focus on in every job that I do is that having that big picture view, but with incremental wins, small wins, and short-term delivery, because this is where you go on the journey, and this is actually how things get changed and transformed.
So you break it down by sub-objectives. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also been a lot of evolution in data. I'm sure you know what's happening on the AI front.
Yeah.
And again, I'm talking about regulation again. In the environment you operate in, with AI, with the evolution in data, how do you balance your decisions to ensure that we don't lose the human connection?
I think you just said it. Actually, you need to start with the customer. Okay, and then this is always what I keep repeating in all the marketing jobs I've been in, and with the teams I've managed or led. And I always tell them, look, if you don't know, just think about what the customer would do, and then what value would bring to the customer. So if you always have that in mind, you'll be safe, because you always put yourself in the customer's shoes. So start with the customer, see what value delivers to the customer, and then use AI as an enabler. not as a
As a
destination, as a
replacement.
replacement.
Got
It's
it.
not a replacement.
Mm.
So it needs to solve a problem, because in many, I've been using technology for the past 25 plus years. In many instances, the technology is trying to find a problem to solve. Okay. When it works really well is when the technology is almost invisible and it solves a problem. Okay. And I think, AI has that potential and beyond potential. I think it can really be transformative to the industry.
Got it. Okay. Do you have any examples of how you've utilized AI and the principle you just mentioned in any marketing campaign
Yeah.
or a business decision you've made in the past?
So it's quite a complex question. Let me unpack it a bit, because there are multiple elements of this. So if you look at a front end perspective, this is what people will see. Front end, yes, there are a lot of benefits to create campaigns, visuals, text, get a lot of operational efficiency in day-to-day tasks, BAU tasks. But if only done properly. Okay, let me explain a bit more. When you are using AI or Gen AI or all the models that are coming out, you need to keep up with the pace. First of all, understanding how fast this goes, and there are so multiple facets of everything. It's really sometimes overwhelming to understand. Okay, which tool should I be using? How do I do that? What is the output? But I think the fundamental question here is, okay, what is my objective? How do I move beyond the task? And then how I can deliver the right messaging or the right creative to my customer from a front-end perspective. How do I keep that level of differentiation that I need to have, and how does that resonate with my brand? And the challenge here is that you can use AI for the front end, but it requires you to become an even better marketer or marketeer, whichever you want to call it. But you need to be a better marketeer in a sense. You need to be a better storyteller. You need to be more rounded in understanding of how this would be positioned to the customer. Okay, so that's sorry, it's a bit long response, but that's the kind of the front end. Okay, and then we are experimenting with that. Okay, we're experimenting with that. Many others are experimenting with that in the market, and I think the key challenge here is how do you understand what is the outcome, and then how do you keep that level of creativity really high and differentiating? Okay, so I'll leave it to this on the front end. On the back end side, I think this is where it's actually a lot more interesting, because AI is now we are experimenting more than experimenting. We're using AI actually to get insights out of the data. So we, as a bank, we have a lot of transactional data, and I'm on the wholesale side of the bank. So we have a lot of B2B data, which is very different from retail.
Data, yeah.
But we see, for example, corridors, India, UAE, Egypt, Pakistan. Those kind of corridors. So we see all these trade corridors. We see those influx of transactions. We also, within industries, we see transactions. So what AI helps us to do is to extract, to identify some patterns out of that and extract some insights that actually we can derive some marketing actions, and then enables us to do even more hyper-personalized initiatives. And contrary to what people think, in B2B, even though B2B versus B2C is kind of an old term, but in, let's say,
Still relevant though.
Relevant, yes. But it's in B2B, it's a relationship business. So it goes even more personalized. Okay. So I think this is where the challenge and opportunity are, is how do we get very personalized, very targeted message that is based on an insight that we generated from an AI, but that would be very relevant, let's say, to a treasurer in the hotel industry for that particular client, And this is where I think a lot of the benefits we can get, at least on the wholesale side, from using AI, and we're seeing already really very promising results.
Got it. So one of the main transformations which AI is driving right now is in influencing customer and consumer search behaviors. So it used to be very simply, you go in, input your search, and Google and Bing and Yahoo, throw up search results.
Yeah.
But now you have the AI overviews, and people are replacing going to Google and search engines or going directly
Yes.
to ChatGPT. How is that influencing how you're planning your content and how you're planning your marketing campaigns?
It's very interesting because so I look at it. I'm going to give you a two-part answer. The first one is, and I'm going to use another acronym. I'm mixing a bit of things, but you have simple things that are done today, not with AI, but with APIs. I know I'm using a buzzword that was very, very hot a few years back, but it's very relevant. I'll tell you why. Uh, you do a transaction right now with APIs connectivity. You're able to see. You just verify that the account that you're sending the money to is the right one. Okay, it's a very small API call, a very simple one, but it delivers incredible value. Okay, so building on that, okay, what are, apart from the insights, the gathering that we can get, what other applications we can use of AIs, excuse me, AIs and APIs to actually create a very smooth customer experience for the corporate customer. Okay, so it enables you to assess the different things that you can be doing. Okay. And we're looking into all of these things. So how we can use AI to fast track KYC. How do we use AI to fast track trade license renewal? All of that stuff. It sounds kind of boring, but let me tell you that it's create a lot of value and removes a lot of friction. Now on the on the first part on the second part of the question is, how do we then use AI to look at those kind of behaviors you're saying for the customer, right? So it's still early days. I think we are, and it's still more on the retail side of our activity. But from a personal perspective, what I can see, great opportunities. Also, it's quite transformative because when you think about, I mean, we see it every day. We Google it. Now the first response is an AI response. Okay. What are we then going to be doing with SEOs, SEM? What is going to be the impact on the overall advertising business, and referencing business and so on? I think it's too early to tell, at least from my side, but I think it will be very transformative. The models are getting also a lot more, they're getting a lot smarter. Because I remember what I was using ChatGPT a few years back. Half of the answers were nonsense, but now you use it, it's quite.
You've got an assistant.
ChatGPT 5, the version 5, although it's missing still some key elements, you ask a question and you get the answer right away. To do research, I think that's quite fun. That's quite really good. Obviously, you still need a human to check. Again, this is what I was saying earlier. You need to be more rounded. You actually need to be more in control, because this is just replacing a repetitive task that you would be doing or someone else will be doing for you, and then you'll be aggregating this. Now it's done almost instantly. But how you're going to use this, you need to have a full view of how you're going to use this and what for.
Got it. Now, moving a bit away from AI, talking more about your leadership and people. So you've, as I mentioned earlier, and for the community, that you're a global citizen. You've worked all over the world. You've led multicultural teams. How do you navigate the nuances of the different cultures or cultural teams that you've led
Yeah.
into putting that into actionable marketing strategies without losing the nuances?
It's a, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think it's incredible. I mean, I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. It adds a lot of value to you, to your experience, to my experience, actually. I mean, and it's almost like receiving a gift because you have visibility on so many things. Myself, I think it starts with myself, as you're probably trying to figure out with my accent. I was born in the States, but I'm French as well. Lebanese origins, Italian origins, became British So very confused already as a person. So I know exactly who I support in sports, but after that, it's just a mess. Multiple languages are spoken at home, and then I picked up Japanese as well when I was living in Japan. So I think that already taught me a lot of lessons, personal lessons, and then getting that richness out of the lessons. So, and I've worked in the Americas. I've worked in both North and South America and Asia. I think what I apply is what I would call localization. I always think global, okay, but we need to be very local, okay. So how do we use that global view, that perspective, but then act locally, understand the cultural nuances, understand how to best drive an activity, how to get the best out of your team, how to motivate your team, how to learn from them as well, because this is an ongoing learning journey. Working with Brazilian team or Japanese team, they're very different, but at the end of the day, the commonality is that we're all trying to do a good job. We're all investing time into a job. Okay. So for me, it's always trying to get that balance between global and local, understanding those nuances, but having principles, like the leadership principles are clear, and then the rules are clear. How we operate today is clear, and so forth. So it's probably because I think every time working in a team as a team sport.
Got it. So basically, culture is an enabler.
Culture is an enabler, but it also provides a lot of richness because you can learn from each other. And it opens up, I think, perspectives, and I can tell you, working here in the Middle East, you get almost life lessons every day. And I find that fascinating. When I was living in Japan, I always thought, you wake up, it's an adventure. Everything you're going to have today will be an adventure. You will learn new things. We'll meet new people. And I think that's all we're all about. So if you gain from each other and you have a common goal, I think you can achieve amazing things.
Got it. Now, coming back to finance and tech.
Yep.
So you've been working with organizations which are into financial services in some capacity or the other, and of course, underlying the DNA of a lot of these organizations have been tech. These two together can form fairly boring messaging or communication from a consumer or from a customer standpoint. What strategies do you employ to convert this into stories that people want to listen versus stories that you want to tell?
This is the biggest challenge, okay? This is the biggest challenge because at the end of the day, what are we as marketeers? We are storytellers.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is the hardest thing to get because when you go into marketing, and this is a very unfortunate of our industry, you're almost boxed into a category. Yeah. Okay. You're a brand person. So you're going to do all of fluffy brand stuff and logos and fonts and colors. You're going to be that brand guardian or whatever. You do all these big campaigns, rebranding. You're going to spend a lot of money from the company. Then you go into performance marketing, and it's all about acquisition, customer acquisition, metrics, and acquiring customers. And then you go to product marketing, which is actually a very underplayed area in most industries, and then misunderstood area as well. I'll tell you a bit more about that. So anyway, to cut a long story short, we're all boxed in, okay? And then we've all been taught to specialize. And then going back to AI, how do you specialize when AI could do that job, could do the performance marketing tomorrow? So how do you become again a storyteller? Okay. So I think that's the biggest challenge, because if we talk about product marketing, for example, what is product marketing? You have a product. The tech teams, if you give it to product teams, they would love to talk about the features of their product. They will actually, and don't get me wrong, I was a product guy as well. They want to say my product is the best, or my product is doing X, Y, and Z, but how's it solving a problem? That's not really, this is where marketing comes into play, and then how you translate that into a benefit for the customer. and even more how that is differentiating versus others, because you could be a me too proposition, and how do we make sure that you're seen in today's world where we're bombarded with media every
Communication.
day and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
communication. Okay, you're using so many different channels, so many different views. I mean, how I get the attention, grab the attention from someone, before it used to be easy. You go to cinema and to TV and so on, but now it's how many touch points we get every day. I mean, it's beyond eyeballs. So um, you have to go back to great storytelling, and this is not something that you are born with. It's a skill that you need to learn, and you need to continue learning. And storytelling is about, why am I doing this? What do I stand for? How do I leverage my brand? What is the benefit I deliver
Mm-hmm.
to my customer? How is this differentiating? And then how do I make that compelling? So I think this is the biggest challenge we have. We have an opportunity with AI, but we cannot give AI the storytelling piece,
Yeah. That's
because
actually one of the reasons we exist. So,
because it's human. At the end of the day, I think it should be empowering you to become even more human, not to dehumanize you, if it's a word. Yeah. Which is sometimes the shortcut that is taken. I say, I'm going to use AI because this is a repetitive process and I don't need anyone for that. Okay, fine. If you're negotiating, I don't know, how many books you're going to buy, or how you're going to renew your stationery, fine. There's low value perhaps, generated here. But if it's about messaging, if it's about taking something new to the market, or it's about delivering something that will actually solve a problem and general problem, or something even more noble with a purpose. Yeah, I cannot do that without you.
got it. Okay. Then you've been working for more than 2 decades,
Mm.
and across organizations, across functions, across geographies. Um, could you talk to us about one your biggest leadership challenge during a transformation that you may have driven?
So look, I've worked in startup environment where we went from zero to I wouldn't say seed, but probably A to C very quickly. Series A to Series C very quickly, where funding was incredibly demanding. You needed a lot of funding to go through. So you have to do that pitch. You need to do that storytelling. You need to really sell the vision. So I've learned a lot through that. Skype taught me to create new products, new proposition, to be incredibly fast, take them to market, see if it works, scale them. So from startups, I got a lot of learnings from there. I think we didn't talk about it, but I worked also for private equity.
Mhm.
And in private equity, it's all about transformation, and it's all about rapid transformation and rapid transformation to valuation and to an exit. And so the framework is clear. The framework is metrics driven. It's what is your runway? How are you going to go? How are you going to do this when you're done? So I've learned a lot as well, because this is rapid transformation. But when you do rapid transformation, you need to break a lot of things, and you need to change a lot of things very quickly. So it tests you it tests you on every level. It tests you on understanding what needs to be done from a big picture perspective, how you articulate it, how you make that change within a business. I'm getting a bit more technical here, but for example, if you're changing a business model, it's not about changing the business model. You're literally, if you're changing from a transaction-based model to a membership subscription-based model, you're changing the whole organization.
Yeah.
You're changing the servicing model. You're changing the operational model. You're changing even how finance is recorded. So to cut a long story short, you learn a lot of how to do that, but all do that also in conjunction with all of the other stakeholders in the business, and obviously here the private equity that is behind. So learning that at that level was also very very, very formative for me. So I mean, all of these lessons basically they keep aggregating to what you are today. And I think the challenge is always, okay, where are the nuggets? What are the things that I really use? Can I really
Got it.
use and use that for the next chapter?
Okay. Very interesting. Now, we spoke about this on the way here, and I think you alluded to this a little earlier as well. There's a lot of emphasis nowadays on low hanging fruits. And so, how do you, as a leader, strike a balance between low hanging fruits and planting trees?
Yeah, there's a lot of analogies here. So if it's there, when you pick it up, then if it's still there.
Yeah.
Um, Look, I said earlier, I love complexity and I love to build things and I love to scale things. But I've learned very quickly that you need to break it down to simpler things.
Hmm.
Okay, so it sounds very anecdotal, but I would break it up into sometimes into t-shirt sizes. I say, okay, this is small, medium, and large. It's a small t-shirt. I can have it right now. Level of effort is small. Okay, let's go for it. Medium, it delivers more value, but we need to plan it. Okay, fine, but we can deliver that, fine. If it's large, okay, now we really need to plan it. This is more transformational. Then what I'm saying is basically to when I hear the low hanging fruit, I need to use another filter because I need to understand, okay, what is really the low hanging fruit? What is the level of effort that is
You're right.
required
Yeah.
to actually get there? And then what is the level of impact you get there? And why did I do that? Is because in so again, when we were at Skype for Business, it was very easy to be focused on things. We have an opportunity, but how do we get there?
Mm.
And what is the level of effort that is required? What is the level of what is the impact we're gonna get? And how is this gonna benefit our big picture? Okay, so having clear view of the the delivery you need to have, almost that operational discipline that you need to have to deliver incremental wins. Communicate those wins. Communicating is very important, and I've learned that lesson really in the hard way sometimes. But always tied to the big picture, because then you have that view, and then you're able to navigate that much better.
You're right. Actually, a lot of times the low hanging fruits or the short term goals end up being like cotton candy. They taste good, but you're like, I don't think what the impact was.
Yeah, and then when you're in markets that are very product led or
Mm.
very promotional led, it drives the value down to the lowest common denominator. And then I remember working in a more retail banking space, and then it was one market, I won't name which one because it's in Europe. I remember a client telling me, "I will take this offer until it hurts."
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, that is strange, but I won't like to have it for free. So basically, your value is driven down to negative value, or until it's not tolerable anymore. So for me, I'm very cautious when I hear low hanging fruit. Another thing that is very important for marketeers is that, okay, you've demonstrated that once, how you can demonstrate that twice, and then how you can then scale that in a consistent fashion. Okay. And then for me, that's always been the leitmotif of everything that I do. And this is kind of the pressure I put on myself, because sometimes the business doesn't ask you to do that in a consistent fashion. But in my book, I mean, it's always the only way you can actually demonstrate that marketing adds value is when you do that, and you're able to scale, you're able to repeat that and use technologies to basically optimize your cost base and delivers more value and more revenue to the business.
Okay. Interesting. One of my leaders from one of my older organizations used to say, "In God I trust. Everyone else should bring data."
It's a good one.
Yeah. So um, there's always a tussle between following your gut and
Yeah.
following data.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of a situation like that where you trusted God or gut versus data, or the other way around?
I'm going to use a very silly example. So I had a boss who actually it makes me laugh that you're mentioning this. It's a true quote. He said, "Data is king, but inside is King Kong." So how do I data on its own is not enough. So I have a data-driven approach is the right approach, because you need to also have that analytical view. Okay, but I'm coming back to the human element. The empathy level is incredibly important, even more so than we're moving now to an AI age where data will be processed very quickly. Okay, you can process data incredibly fast now. Okay, but what insights do you get out of that? How are you going to position that with the right level of empathy? So let me give you a very, I mean, just out of my, just right now, I just thinking out loud. If I were to say that I'm going to create a specific proposition for X company X or CFO X that has that kind of that has that need of X, let's say, how do I do that? I could have all the data that delivers that, and they say, okay, yes, great, but how do I position that? How do I sell it? How is it going to be differentiating versus others? The level of empathy, level of the insight you need to get, and the strategic thinking you need to have around that insight. Okay, and how do I go about reaching the right level of empathy, the right level of relevance? I think this is where we really need to focus on as marketeers. I think this is where we really add value. But it's a tough ask because, again, we need to understand the data incredibly well, process the data even better, but then move it to this. We have a huge amount of data, but I still think that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everybody was talking about big data. But now it's how do I get the insight? And I think insight is incredibly important. Local insights. How do I get that local piece to understand how to best deliver that? So yeah.
Okay. Now there are lots of trends. We have Web3, we've had blockchain, we had NFTs. Now we have AI. What trend do you think is here to stay, at least for the next beyond AI?
So I think we've spoken about AI a lot. I think Gen AI, of course, is. I mean, I've seen stuff that are quite amazing. I think. I've seen a few things that are really awesome. Some of them are a bit scary, but still awesome. Blockchain. I think blockchain. And this is my personal opinion. For smart contracts, anything like that, it makes a lot of sense. For the rest, is kind of technologies that's trying to find a problem to solve. But that's my personal
But you'd
opinion.
also mentioned space tech.
Space tech, and this is where you're talking to the small kid, the Star Trek fan. Why is it interesting? Because space tech actually touches everything, and you think, okay, space tech, the guy's talking about stuff that is not happening. But actually, it is happening, and then the application of that technology or these propositions that are being built to everyday life is quite amazing. I was talking to an Indian startup, I forgot their name now, and we had that conversation earlier. These guys are able, from space, analyze the soil to understand much better which kind of crops needs to be planted and harvested, and how to manage the harvest, how to manage the climate, the monsoons. That's fascinating, right? Or other people are thinking about content syndication, but from satellite to satellite. So this is where my mind goes back into, okay, let's start to connect the dots. I get excited because it takes me back to the beginning of my career when I was thinking about, okay, let's connect the dots. Let's understand what are the things we need to be putting in place and what value would that deliver to the customer and or to the people. We talk a lot about customer buying, but it's not about just the monetary value or the commerce element. It's about the experience you deliver. And then if I can get an incredible experience, let's say using something that has been done in space, why not? We talk about sustainability, data centers and AI, they generate a huge amount of CO2 and that are detrimental to the environment. So people are trying to put them in the oceans, but then create problems. I met a guy a few months back. He's shooting portable data centers in space, 200 kilos. So, that's awesome, right? It sounds incredible. At least there are new things coming up, and might create another problems, but at least I think this is quite an exciting place to explore again.
Yeah, let's watch this space.
Yeah, let's press this space. Yeah,
Literally.
100%.
So now my editorial team tells me that you have some surprise questions for me. So
Yes, but
shoot.
I have to look now into. I'm cheating a bit now.
Yeah, it's fine.
The Actually, I want to see what do you think is the biggest challenge right now? What actually keeps you awake at night? Because you have a family as well. You know, what are the things that really keep you awake? Where you're optimistic about the world, and then at the same time you're like, oh, be cautious.
So from a professional perspective,
Professional, but thinking about the overall society.
so for the last 20 years, again, like you, I've been working across many different organizations, and a large part of my career has been in marketing. Whether it was when I was in a bank, when I was in FMCG, when I was in AMCs, it's been marketing. It's only in the last year and a few other stints I've had in the last 20 years, but I've done a lot of work on driving commercial impact.
Mm.
What I've heard the most in the last year, and that kind of was some of the questions I asked you as well, is where businesses seem to be losing a bit of faith in marketing,
Mm.
because it's always become about marketing's a cost center. So, you know, hiring is a problem, innovation is a problem. So things have become a lot more contracted, and it's becoming more and more difficult to drive impact.
Mm.
So while I'm pivoting, professionally into driving commercial impact with the organizations I work with, I do feel marketing, again, there's that gut and there's the data and there's the heart and there's the humanity.
Yeah.
Um, it's becoming a lot more challenging in this function than any other functions.
It's an interesting one. I mean, how do you, what is your view of how to solve it? I mean, this is the question that we all get, all of us. I was reading a data point a few months back that I forgot which, but I think it was less than 40% of CMOs actually have a seat at the exco, or some of them actually, most of them actually don't have a seat at the exco.
A lot of them are now doing away with CMOs, and they're like, hey, should we have a digital officer or a marketing officer? So again, it's a journey. Marketing's not going anywhere. But it's just that I feel over the last year or two, since COVID at least, there's been a bit of pressure on the impact that marketing drives.
And do you think this is a lack of understanding of what value brings marketing?
No, I
brings?
think it's the world economy. Because revenues are contracting, margins are contracting, you got wars all over. So marketing always ends up becoming like, and amongst other support function. I do feel marketing is a business function, but I think somewhere over the last few years, it's started veering into support function territory.
It's always the danger. It's always the danger for us.
But we are a resilient community. Now, I've just been told about the time as well. Last section, rapid fire. First app you open in the morning.
First app I open in the morning, Spotify.
Ah, okay. Which city has taught you the most about marketing?
Which city has
taught you the most about marketing?
Tokyo.
Okay. If you could use only one MarTech tool for a year, which would it be?
Would Jenny I would be there.
Okay. All-time favorite campaign that you've worked on?
Okay, that takes me back a long time ago, and it connected to my music. I did a rebranding campaign using David Bowie's Heroes song.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It was amazing.
Awesome. Team sport or solo adventure?
Team sport, you already know. I mean, it's rugby, team sport. I don't play it, but I love it. I try to play it. And then the other one is solo adventure?
Which would you choose? I think you already answered.
Team sport.
Then which language do you default to when you're pitching big, bold ideas?
Well, that's a very good one. When I'm angry is French.
Okay.
Actually, Spanish is a close second. But no, funny enough, when I want to think rationally is English.
Okay. One piece of analog tech you secretly love?
My record player.
Okay. And an emerging trend you think is overhyped.
Emerging trend. Oh, okay, that's I'm gonna drive a lot of um, criticism. So stablecoin. I think it has a lot of opportunities, and I see that. I'm starting to see it, but I'm still struggling with crypto overall.
I think most of the world is, and people who say they know it are probably not being
I
very
feel I
honest.
don't know. I don't even understand it when I'm in the crowd with crypto guys. It feels like it's a bit of a cult. I don't know. I'm gonna have a lot of haters on this, but yeah.
No, you won't.
Uh,
Last question. One piece of advice you'll give your 25-year-old self.
Um, it's a long game, but focus on the small wins. So the small wins will help you go long.
Low hanging fruits and planting trees.
Yes, so it's just make sure that you're playing the long game. Don't be afraid of risk and complexity, but make sure that in that long game you understand how to build these wins, because otherwise you'll lose focus on the long game of where you headed.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, George.
Thank you so much for having me. This
I'm
was
sure
great.
you guys will enjoy all the tidbits and information and learnings that George has had in his journey. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. Great.